Making it up as you go along won't have any kind of cohesion. As in, if you're going in a number of different directions, depending on what you're thinking at that particular second, it's not likely it's going to go anywhere. You need to have a destination, even if it's far away and very blurry, that you're working towards. So if I'm writing a story, for instance, and I do this with a bit of practice behind me, is I will have a set point where I'm working towards. Now that set point may change, but at least I'm working towards something. I'm saying that it's going to end like this, and so everything I'm doing now is going to lead up to this point. And then have little markers on the way, so a basic plot line where I can say, well, I'm just trying to get to these different markers. That's what you have when you have a bit of direction, and that helps you with your cohesion. I'm going to write up to the point where they get onto a boat, so I'm going to focus on everything about that, so I'm not going off in any random directions. That is one of the things that really do help with cohesion. As I said, at that point may be just an ending or a climax, and so you need to be making sure that you've got that ending and climax in mind, because if you don't, it makes it very difficult to know where your story is leading, and particularly it does come across quite a lot. You may not think it does, but it does. Having either one of these things in mind allows you to sort of know what you're working towards, and it means as well, you're not going to try and upstage your climax with something big at the beginning. Try and start off with a bang and then sort of leave nothing left by the time you get to the rest of the story. Essentially, you're trying to pace it so that you're just keeping things nice and smooth and nice and even. And finally, if you're given a question or topic, your endpoint needs to provide some sort of insight. As in, if I'm giving you a question where you're writing a story about a journey and what people learn from that journey, I need to think about my ending or my climax having some sort of message about journeys and having something to say and something to communicate on that idea of what a journey is and how they've got there. That's another thing that you have when you're having direction of your work. Now, next thing is simplifying. And good stories are ones that are actually very, very simple. And you actually find that the majority of the stories that you'll read are quite simple ones. And the more complicated ones require someone who's quite skilled with their words, who is quite able to really develop it in a strong and meaningful kind of way. When you're looking at stories, and particularly the stories that you will be writing, now you won't be writing 500-page epics, in which case you can make them as complicated as you want, because you've got a captive audience who are probably going to go and want to keep going with the story to find out what happens next. Unfortunately, you don't have that luxury. You've only got a couple of pages, and so what you're writing has to be simple. It can't be anything else. And it must be a very simple idea. You need to write length through the story. You don't have time or space to come up with these multiple plot lines. And this is what I mean by that. When you're looking at it and going, what should I be doing? You should really keep it to a very, very small setting, scene. Expand on that rather than trying to tell the entire story of mankind in about a page, because you'll find that you'll be missing things, you won't develop anything, it's just going to be rubbish. The thing that you need to do is you need to just try and keep a very simple concept. Now, this is the way I like to think of it, which is that a good way to monitor a story is to describe it to someone in a sentence, or say that you can describe it to someone in a sentence. There's a story about a boy and girl falling in love. That's one thing I can describe in a sentence, and it's nice and simple. Admittedly, it's been done 1,000 times, but it's simple. If I was to say, well, there's this character and he does this, and then he does this, and then he does this, and then finally he does this, and you have to read it to understand it, that's not very good for a short story. You're not going to get anyone to be able to follow that, especially in 2 pages or 3 pages, depending on how much you write. Even if you get 5 pages, you're not going to get that kind of detail. You'll need about 50, 60 pages at the very least to be able to expand on that. Anything that's complicated must go out. Anything that is just adding too much complexity will just have to go. Focus on developing quality description instead. And that is mainly what you'd be looking for, particularly when it comes to developing your flow of your work. If you have to jump between things and have to explain things all the time, you're not going to get a lot of flow in your writing.